Great Outdoors with Jason White, exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, the Great Outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to the Great Outdoors. Happy to be with you today. Looks like we might be getting a little bit of rain today here in Southwestern Pennsylvania. Certainly, it was a very wet spring and a wet summer, but the past few weeks have been ridiculously dry. I know at my farm alone, the ground is extremely cracked, and it's just been pretty rough. So I think right now everybody could probably say we could all use a little bit of rain, so fingers crossed. That being said, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors. Special thanks to the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. You can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com. We have the early bird special currently happening. If you join today, you get the rest of the year for free, and you get all of 2026. So again, the early bird special, you get all of 2025, the remainder of the year for free, and you get all of 2026. You can join today at marianaoutdoors.com. Certainly happy to have you. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds, managed and operated by 10 Mile Creek Outfitters. If you're looking to book a whitetail deer hunt, free range, no fence. I just want to start off by saying no fence in any combined for anything with Wild Acres. There's a lot of things that we have, whether that's the deer hunts, turkey hunts, trout fishing trips. If you're looking to book a wedding, if you're looking to have a corporate event, if you're looking to do just an upland bird hunt as a fundraiser for your organization, we can accommodate in all capacities, a little bit of everything, which makes the place so special. 10mileco.org for more information. Again, deer hunts, turkey hunts, trout fishing trips, upland bird hunts, upland bird hunt fundraisers, weddings. We have a venue location, corporate events, you name it, parties, picnics. Love to have you. 10mileco.org, or give us a call at 724-579-0924. And last but not least, special thanks to Washington County Tourism and Promotion Agency. Please visit Washington County, Pennsylvania. Going to go through some upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsmen Association. Thursday, August the 28th at 6 o'clock, there will be an Upland Bird Committee and Fish Committee meeting. It's a joint meeting. That is at Wild Acres Farm, 1997 Maury Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. Saturday, August 30th at 10 a.m. from 10 to 12, there will be an open house and a tour at the MOA. We'd love to see you. Again, that is also at 1997 Maury Road, Clarksville, PA. Tuesday, September the 2nd, dove hunting opens up for the state of Pennsylvania. And obviously, if you're a member of the MOA, you can do that anytime. We'd love to have you. Obviously, all hunting seasons, limits, etc. when it comes to dove hunting under the migratory bird, state and federal stamps are required. So please make sure if you're interested in anything like that, just make sure you got all your appropriate licensing. Saturday, September 20th is the Energy, Security, and Sportsmanship Bash. That's at 19 North Event Venue in Washington, PA. That is from 4 o'clock until 9 o'clock. Again, that's Saturday, September 20th. 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's the Energy, Security, and Sportsmanship Bash, 19 North Event Venue, Washington, PA. Tickets are $40. Information is on our Facebook page, Mariana Outdoors, and Facebook page, Mariana Outdoorsman Association, and also at our website, marianaoutdoors.com. We'll be firing up trout stockings in October. We'll have a membership. It's a fun little contest that runs throughout the whole fall, winter, and into the spring. Information's, again, on our different platforms on that. First trout stockings in October, and then we'll run monthly, November, December, January, February, March, April, and May. Hope to see you. We have also a lot of our stockings are listed now on Facebook, also on our website. Dates, times are subject to change. We also have 2 fishing tournaments in the spring. There's going to be a one-day fly fishing tournament, March the 7th, and then we have a 3-day trout fishing tournament. That'll be Friday, May 1st through Sunday, May the 3rd. So if you want any information about any of these upcoming events, certainly we'd love to have you. Lots of great information on either Facebook or our website at marianaoutdoors.com. And I also want to make a note that we will be scheduling some continental pheasant hunts as fundraisers that'll be open to the public. That'll be available as well for any additional information. But that being said, we're kind of winding down the dog days of summer as things kind of dry out and the leaves will start to turn before you know it. I know at our place the leaves are already starting to turn, so I think spring or summer's kind of winding down and it'll be fall before we know it. But with that being said, I kind of wanted to talk today a little bit about preparations for fall, especially with the folks that are going to be deer hunting. So if you're a whitetail deer hunter and you're going to be pursuing, an archery hunt, there's some things you should be doing in the month of August and even into, I would say, the first 2 weeks of September. But you're into August right now. August is a prime time to, if you already have identified, I would hope you've already identified where you want to hunt this year. Tree locations, trails, you kind of name it. But if you haven't, certainly now is better. The sooner you do it, the better. You want to get out into the woods and take a walk, kind of figure out where the heavily traveled corridors are, where the deer are, bedding areas, you name it. If you don't know what a bedding area is, you're basically looking for the places that the deer relax and sleeping during the day. And these can be identified by roughly, they look kind of like ovals, but usually about 2 to 3 foot wide and usually about 4 foot in length. It's just an oval space. It's kind of packed down, but you're looking for, they call them bedding areas. Basically, the deer are out typically in the fields in the evenings and at night, and they get in these thicket spaces during the day to basically just kind of relax and mill around. But yes, you want to be able to identify the corridors, traveling patterns. Like I said, I would hope that you kind of have identified these things between, your prime time to be doing that is typically after the late season and into early spring, because that's when you can really see the trails and paths as clear as day. But maybe you got a new piece of property. Maybe you're one of those people that's now in this certified hunter program in Southwestern Pennsylvania. If you're not and you're interested, please make sure you look on the Pennsylvania Game Commission's website. That's a really exciting thing, the pilot program, the certified hunter program. Certainly applies to this conversation right now, because if you're somebody signing up for that program and all of a sudden you're going to have access to new property and you need to do some scouting and you're going to be doing that right now, this conversation applies. Got to get out in the woods, got to identify those trails. You need to make sure right out of the gate, if you've identified a place where your tree stand is going to go or to or from, you got to remember, from your vehicle, wherever you're parking, to wherever you're going to hunt, you want to make sure you got a clear path. And a clear path can be achieved by a wide variety of things. Sometimes you don't have to do much of anything. Maybe you're in a lucky position where that's the case. Other times it might include a pair of loppers. It might include tools like a machete, a weed whacker. I've used all the above. But you want to make sure that from wherever you're parking to wherever you're going and you have identified where you're going to hunt, you got to make sure your trail is clear the entire way. And that's for numerous reasons. Number one, you don't want to be walking into a place and be scratching, scraping, bumping up against stuff. You don't want to be going through jagger bushes and ripping your clothing. You don't want to be going through stuff and making a lot of noise. So a clear path is very important just from a noise perspective. Two, you don't want to obviously damage or ruin your clothing. And then the third thing is you certainly don't want to have any scent left behind. That's a really big deal. Scent control is something that you have to really practice and pursue It's something you got to do at home. And, it's something just extremely important as part of the whole dynamics of hunting, especially when you're archery hunting. So a clear trail, every scenario is going to be different, but you need to remember you want to have a good, clean way in and a good, clean way out. You need to make sure that way in and out is not necessarily the same way that the deer are going to be traveling. This is something some people, I would say, that are rookies, make a bad mistake of. You do not want to necessarily be walking in and out, especially on a long distance, on an actual deer trail. That is not a good method if you can avoid it. I know it's not always the simplest idea. Sometimes you have to cut a separate way in. But if it is possible, it would benefit you to try to avoid walking directly on a highly traveled or a main corridor deer trail. I can tell you, I've been busted time and time again by those pesky does. They got a great nose and it works very well. So it's just something I want to, throw out there. If you have an opportunity to try to avoid a main travel corridor to get to your stand, I would highly recommend it. Another thing, as far as getting in and getting out, I mentioned about machetes, the tools you should use or utilize to do that. Another thing is something as basic as a rake, especially when it gets to, you want to make sure any debris and materials are cleared as best as you can. I highly suggest this, especially depending on where you're at. Different scenarios are obviously every place is different, but you want to get in and out of a tree stand or wherever you're hunting as quietly and with as smallest and least amount of disturbance as possible. So whether you're talking about a situation or scenario that we're talking about scent, we're talking about noise, we're talking about even not damaging our clothing. The worst thing you could ever do is, have like a rain suit on and go through like a Jagger patch, and next thing you know, now your rain suit is literally punctured with a bunch of holes. So this is all about like preparing for obviously the successful hunt, which is to come. Now, when you get to your tree stand this time of the year, I highly recommend obviously taking your tree stand to the location. But make sure, depending on your situation and scenario, if you're using a lock-on stand, I use different varieties of lock-on stands. I use different varieties of ladder stands. I highly recommend making sure whenever you're putting it up to have new straps. Do not utilize old straps. Usually I will replace my straps every other year on my stands. If not, I will add new ones in addition to the old ones. I do not like to have situations or scenarios where I have old straps or rely on old straps. They're not that expensive. I mean, you can buy 500 to 2,500 pound straps at your local hardware stores. A lot of the big box stores have them. And they're pretty cheap. I mean, you can usually get a ratchet strap for around $2.50, something like that. But I highly recommend that is something that you absolutely have are new straps. And if it's an old stand, add new straps or change the straps out. You don't want to let straps go for probably more than 2 years if you've let your stand out in the woods. Just passing on some words of wisdom. I know from experience. I've had my near misses, and I've seen straps get dry rotted, deteriorate, and it's nothing but a bad safety situation waiting to happen. So do yourself a favor, new straps. The other thing, if you're going into or if you're going into a location and you're taking a stand, obviously you should have inspected your stand before you even took it to make sure everything is in proper order. There's no cracks, nothing that's going to deteriorate or affect the strength or stamina of the stand. If you're going out into a location where the stand is already up and you're just going to do a check, you need to do a thorough check. Check all the steps, check all the your straps, get up into the stand, make sure you have your safety harness, which is obviously always critical. Make sure you have a safety harness that fits you. A lot of people make mistakes of getting safety harnesses and not getting one size for themselves. There's a multitude of reasons as to why. First and foremost, if you don't have one that's properly sized, there's a risk that it could potentially not work. Secondly, there's a humongous, in my opinion, comfort level when it comes to safety harnesses. You will definitely be appreciative to have something that actually fits you. So, those are two important pieces of the puzzle. Obviously, you want something that's going to fit you and obviously operate in a worst case scenario that it needs to. And secondly, you want something comfortable. You don't want something that's too tight. You also don't want something that's way too baggy. Obviously, if it's way too baggy, it's probably not going to effectively work. And also, then you get the risk of walking in and catching on something or climbing up and catching on steps. Just a lot of reasons why. You want something that fits you really, really well. It's no different than your clothing. You don't want clothing that's too tight, and you don't want baggy clothing. You want something that fits you. So your safety harness should be the same thing. So just make sure that you're very conscientious and aware of that. Make sure you got your bow hangers, or for that matter, even your gun hangers installed, and make sure they're all properly working. If you're somebody that, put one out last year and you're going back to check it, I highly recommend, you need to really kind of touch that stuff and make sure everything's kosher. You just never know. I've seen situations where I've had stands out and, maybe there was a storm and a giant limb fell down and maybe hit part of the stand or hit some steps. You just need to make sure. I can't stress it enough. The worst thing you could ever do is just assume in the middle of the dark that you're going to just going to wing it and say, my stand, I put it up last year and I'm going to go, opening day archery, I'm just going to go to my stand. There's so many negative things that can come from it, between walking in, just getting to the stand, the issues with not having your trails cut properly, the issues with damaging your clothing or your gear, the issues with obviously leaving scent. And then you get to the stand itself, which could be a death trap. It could have some structural issues, the straps could be dry rotted. You go and climb up in your stand. Next thing you know, the stand's either collapsing or you're basically falling out of the stand. It's not worth it. I can't stress it to you enough. Taking the time to just go and inspect your stands and making sure they're safe and proper is so, so important. It's not worth falling out of a tree stand and breaking your back or being a paraplegic or somebody that's got to walk with a cane the rest of their lives, or for that matter, you could die. You got to take the time. If you're going to hunt, you got to put in that sweat equity. You got to put in a little bit of time in the homework. And to the point, it's not something, if you're somebody new and even depending on your situation, if you're somebody that you're able to put up tree stands and leave them up, hey, that's great. You do a little bit each year, and over time, just like me now, I've got a lot of ladder stands up, box stands, heck, even lock-ons that I have in a lot of different areas that I'm able to have up all year. And then when I go in, I'm basically doing my checkup day, which I'm going to be doing very soon. I'll go to all the stands and I'll go through the entire process. Now, once you're up in the stand, this is something extremely important. You're up in the stand, okay? We've gotten to the point where we got clear trails. We're at our location. We've checked the stand. The stand's good. We've changed out straps or done what we needed to do. Steps are all good. We got our hangers up. Okay. Now, shooting lanes. This is very, very important. It does you no good whatsoever to have a great place to hunt. It could be the best place in the world. But if you don't have appropriate shooting lanes to where an arrow, or for that matter, even a bullet can get through, what's the point of hunting there? It's not like you're, don't get me wrong, there are tree stands and there are times where we hunt in tight quarters where you're only shooting 5 or 10 yards. 9 times out of 10, that isn't the case. You got to be able to shoot 20 or 30 yards, sometimes even 40. So what I recommend is wherever you're hunting at, I always try to have at least 3 good shooting lanes. And that could be if you just have one trail coming by you, it could be just picking 3 different spots along that trail. Maybe to your left, if the path is crossing in front of you, maybe it's one at your 10 o'clock, one at your 12 o'clock, and one at your 2 o'clock. Every situation is going to dictate a different scenario, but I highly recommend you want more than one good shooting lane. It's just, you never know what's going to happen. The odds of the deer giving you the perfect opportunity or the right opportunity at the one shooting lane, just doesn't always happen. You just never know. So I recommend establishing 3 points. Now, what's involved in that? It's really not a whole lot. It's more of a scenario that you can achieve with a machete, a pair of loppers. One thing I invested in, it was like $150. I bought a battery pole saw. I bought it from a hardware store. It was actually a great investment. I would actually highly recommend anybody that ever needs, anybody ever looking for, if you have to do multiple places or if you have access to a pole saw, the battery pole saws are absolutely a great investment. If you get one, make sure you before you get out in the woods, make sure that you have not only a full charge battery, but take a backup battery with you. You need to make sure with those pole saws you have the deep celled batteries, not the thinner batteries. You want the deep celled batteries. Always take a backup and make sure that your bar chain oil, all that stuff is tight up to snub and ready to rock and roll, and you got good oil on your bar before you go out. You don't want to be out in the woods and next thing you know, it's like, oh, well, your chain was loose or you didn't have batteries or whatnot. Like, you want to make sure you got your stuff to take with you. Typically what I like to do in the scenarios is I'll usually go up into the tree stand, and it's a combination of things. Obviously you got to cut some limbs, in the direct vicinity of the stand, and then usually go down on the ground with a pole saw and try to just direct somebody else. So like, I always like to do this with another person. It just makes life a lot easier. If you can get 2 people to go, it can make many hands make light of work. But if you can get somebody up in the stand and kind of get the other person to go down to where the deer shooting areas would be, obviously you're going to look back to your vantage point at the tree stand, and clearly you're going to want to snip any limbs that could, deflect an arrow, etc. That is super important. I think a lot of people miss that step. I can't tell you over the years how many times I've heard people say, well, I hit a limb. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but if you have good shooting lanes and you know where you can and cannot shoot, it's honestly a situation where good preparation equals success on the back end. So I just want to reiterate this process. We're at the point now where we have a good walking lane getting in. We've trimmed everything. We've gotten to our stand, whether you're putting up a new stand or whether you're checking on an old one. We've checked on our straps. We've checked on our steps. We've changed what we needed to change. We make sure that the stand itself is clean and clear. We have our hangers. We have our shooting lanes cleared. We also need to make sure that our bow rope or our gun rope is appropriate. That's another thing that can dry rot if you do leave it out over the season. You're going to want to make sure that it's in good working order. Again, last thing you want to be doing is pulling a bow up or a gun up and boom, the rope snap or something be defective and it falls down. Just a very, very bad situation. It just creates, it just not good. Again, I speak from experience. I had a situation where my bow fell down and just not good at all. I had just a bad rope and it broke at the clevis I had. Bow fell down. Just it was a nightmare. Stupid mistake that I could have prevented had I just changed my rope out in advance. But it'll never happen again. I can assure you of that. I made that mistake and I'll never deal with it again. Another thing I always recommend, just while we're talking about it, if you're doing a ladder stand, I always like to put burlap around my stands. I just feel like it really helps because you're so much lower to the ground. I always feel that from a scent perspective, the higher you are, the better, the better off you are. Again, every situation is going to be different when it comes to scent, depending on where the deer are coming from, and obviously you get into thermoclimates and discussions about windage, directions, etc. Even time of the year. But one thing I like to do from a visual perspective is when you're sitting and looking at a ladder stand, if you're somebody that is hunting from a ladder stand for it doesn't matter if it's rifle, if it's archery, etc., especially if you're archery hunting, I highly recommend getting some burlap. It's not that much, depending on if there's a sale or if it's running full price. It can run from $10 to $20. I like it. I usually take it around the perimeter of the stand where it drops down. It's kind of like a skirt almost. It works really effective. You can zip tie it around the railings. I always not only zip tie it, but then I highly recommend you take a pair of nippers and always nip off the tail ends. I hate that when those tag ends are sticking out. They just they seem to catch on everything, and then next thing you know, it's making unnecessary noise. But from a visual perspective, highly recommend the canvas. It just works out really, really well. If you're gonna go down that path, it's just from experience again. The burlap, I would recommend looking for something that's made of more of a burlap material. I feel that it lasts longer. The most I've ever really seen that burlap survive is usually about 2 seasons if you do leave it out. There are some other materials that I've seen. They're lucky to make it a season, if they even make it a season. Some of the materials just are very cheap. So when you're buying something, I recommend if you're going to put something like that up, spend the extra $5 or $10 and get the better quality. Some of that stuff just doesn't last very long, and then next thing you know, it's falling apart or deteriorating. Again, I just been down that road and I've had stuff fall apart literally not even through a single season, and it is what it is. Some other thoughts that I wanted to give. So you're now at a point where you got your trail, you're at a point where you have your stand, everything's secure, your rope, your hangers, shooting lanes. Another thing is you need to make sure that you have your yardages. I always recommend, if you're establishing your shooting lanes, you need to give yourself, take a rangefinder with you, especially if you're archery hunting, and identify some key spots, distance-wise. A little tip I've used in the past, I've put up tape at different yardages. So say it was 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. I've used different colored tapes. I've used paint. All that stuff has worked really well. Certainly has been a key, I would say, a key aspect and opportunity that I've utilized over the years, and it's worked out really, really well. But you got to know your yardages. You got to know that in advance. because clearly when you're establishing your shooting lanes, you want to make sure you're obviously far enough. You don't want to cut a shooting lane 20 yards, but yet you're going to have a chance to shoot a deer at 30. Just, kind of common sense stuff, but just reiterating its importance. So say you've done all that stuff and now you're on your way to get out of the tree stand. When you go and get out of the stand, you need to make sure, I highly recommend this, from the tree stand all the way to where you're coming in, I highly recommend. They sell different types of these, but there's like reflectors you can buy. Typically, they're little push pins that can go into a tree. They sell some that are clip-ons that can go on limbs. Highly, highly recommend them. They call them night eyes, but it's just very helpful. I suggest that if you can do it, tag it in so you can make sure going in and going out that you can see both directions if it's not a double-sided one. It's just a good tool. It's good for safety, especially if you're getting down at night. Say you stay late and it's dark, or if you're coming in the dark in the morning, and you got your little headlamp on. It's just a good little, they reflect light really well. Just makes it easier getting in and getting out. I also want to make a mention, we're talking more lock-on stands. We're talking more hang-ons right now. I want to shift gears to hunting blinds and tower stands. If you're somebody that's going to be putting up a hunting blind, I highly recommend taking a weed whacker with you. And wherever you're going to put your little pop-up blind up, you should weed whack and clear any and all debris under the footprint. The worst thing you could have is, whether that's tall grasses, whether it's leaves, debris, doesn't really matter. When you're in that little blind, you do not want to be making noise, because you got to remember, you're at ground level with the deer. They can hear extremely well, they can see extremely well, and they can smell extremely well. Do not give them an advantage in any capacity. So you want to remove the noise barriers. And again, I know this from experience, learned the hard way. So take a weed whacker, take a rake, and whatever your footprint's going to be, weed whack it, rake it, get it down to almost as low as you can. If it's grass, if it's almost dirt or whatever, rake it, get it really low. You'll thank yourself later. If you have a hunting blind, make sure you have a chair or chairs inside of it. I would recommend presetting your windows in the hunting blind the way you want them. Make sure you have extra anchors in the ground. Make sure you have, again, a clear path in and out, however you're coming and going. Again, make sure that your shooting lanes are clear, whatever vantage point that you have. I like to set them to where I can tuck them in and have some cover. I'm not a big fan of, you got to realize deer have great eyes, great vision, that then ties in with the nose, and you just got to remember something, like when you're in a hunting blind, you're ground level, you're looking right at them. So anything you can do to try to grab an upper hand, if that's tucking the blind in with some debris, using extra limbs, rubbish, from just, maybe it's a snag pile area that you can tuck into. Those are always great things to do. Just ways to blend in better. You don't want to put a blind out in the middle of an open field or in a space to where you stick out like a sore thumb, because guess what? When the deer pop out, they're going to look at you, because not necessarily knowing you're in there, but that's not normal. That's not a normal thing in the woods or, out at all. So yeah, they're going to be like, well, what? They're always going to look at that just to feel protected, to make sure they put a set of eyes on it. So when you're putting up those types of blinds, just make sure you try to tuck them in to blend in as best as possible. And then, like I said, make sure you got a clear footprint, make sure you got your chairs in there, make sure everything's prepped in advance. Tower stands. I know there's a lot of people out there that either buy or build tower stands. Something I highly, highly, highly recommend is you go out, typically in those capacities, I'd recommend going out in late August or even early September. You need to go check on them. And why I say to do that, you want to wait until you know that, not to creep anybody out, but you need to wait until you know that the best opportunity, if there's going to be bees or wasps or whatnot, like you want to wait until the season is kind of max where there's not going to be anything new started. I've learned this the hard way. You don't want to go out, like, say, in July and check on a tower stand and say you take wasp spray killer or bee killer. Well, then you come back in October and guess what? The bees rebuilt again. When you get into tower stand conversations, I suggest going out right around Labor Day. I feel like that's like a good time to do it. Because if you go into a stand and you open it up and there are wasps or bees or something, hornets, I suggest spraying that time because the likelihood of them coming back is very, very, very low. I would almost guarantee you they're not. You don't want to get into a situation where you're walking a stand and you're getting stung. Like, that's just not good. So, when you look at the tower stands, it's just something that's a risk. You don't want to get into a situation where you're going up and you're getting bit, especially folks that are allergic. I take that very seriously because I deal with clients. And that could be whether that's deer hunting, turkey hunting, or heck, whether that's pheasant hunting. There are people that are extremely allergic, deathly allergic to certain stings and bites. So I try to make sure that I get all of the potential things that could hurt or kill somebody, get them all removed from these stands. So if you can go out and check your tower stands and make sure that all the bees, wasps, hornets are sprayed, removed. You definitely don't want to be going to a situation, especially with if you got kids or whatnot. You don't want people getting stung. And those are places that I bring this up because if you have a stand and it's got the littlest of crack, I can assure you those things are going to get in there, and that's going to turn into their little tree house or house. And next thing you know, there's going to be hives. And it just, every year I deal with it. Every year I try to button up my stands better and better to try to make them more, how would I would say it, weather tight. But I just feel like it's almost an endless cause or a worthless cause because every time I try to button them up more and more, I feel like they always find a littlest of smallest cracks to squeeze into. So again, tower stands, whether it's built or man-made, or not man-made, if it's prefabbed, even plastic, I highly, highly recommend going out, usually right around the first week of September, and checking for any type of wasps, hornets, bees, etc., and spraying as necessary. You don't want to get in a situation where you take people out or where you go into a stand, even if you would go, say, early archery and just hunt out of the stand. Can be devastating. I've been stung bad by wasps and hornets. I always feel like September is just a bad time. That's usually when they're active, so that's when I try to go and check on stuff. I've had it to where, I've been stung just doing work around the farm, and next thing you know, like, I got literally an infection in my arm and I can barely use my hand. Some people get really sick from them. I've been lucky, but I just throw it out there. If you can check on that stuff and check on it in advance, it will absolutely benefit you. And no matter if it's a ground blind or your tower stands, make sure that you, again, chairs, make sure all the windows and doors are working properly. Kind of go through the whole thing. Is the latch on the doors working? Can you close the doors? Is everything functioning properly? Because look, at the end of the day, if it's not working right that day, it's not going to work properly when you go hunting. So if you need to fix something, or there's an opportunity to fix it, or you need to fix it, take the tools with you. Maybe it's something you can fix while you're there. If not, make sure you get your butt back there and fix it in as quickly as possible, because you don't want to be out there literally the day before hunting season. At the end of the day, you want these animals to feel comfortable. And you should almost be like a ghost. Whether you're walking to or from your stand, with your stand being there, they should feel comfortable and acclimated to where everything's good. You don't want to be out in a situation where you're coming in and disturbing them, because listen, when they're disturbed and they're on high alert, the odds of you being successful drastically go down. Hopefully these were some good tips for you. There's a lot you can be doing over the next, I would say, 30 days to prepare your tree stand. If you got a new tree stand, old tree stand, whether you're doing safety checks, whether you're doing your walkways, doing all the above, checking on your, putting up new ground blinds, putting up tower stands, it doesn't really matter. The magic time is middle of August, middle of September. You should be able to achieve all your goals in that window to prepare for the season. I highly recommend getting it done no later than middle of September. After that, in my opinion, you're pushing your luck, because then you're kind of at the mercy of possibly bumping things. But I want to give a special thanks again to our sponsors, Marion Outdoorsman Association. Join today at marionoutdoors.com. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds, 10mileco.org, and special thanks to Washington County, Pennsylvania. Please visit Washington County today. I'm Jason White. This has been The Great Outdoors, and we'll see you next week.